Hey everybody, Blue Knight here. Just wanted to share my build process here, so I titled this video how to build an Emaxx on a budget. And so just kind of wanted to go through everything I've done to make this truck a really good truck and for a really good price. Because if you start off with buying a brand new brushless Emaxx with the Mama Monster and then build this whole thing up, I mean, you'll be over $1,000 easy with all the hop-ups you need to make this a really stout truck to be able to go with your friends and go bashing with a Thunder Tiger MT4 and a Savage and the associated rival, and to be able to go out there and have a good time and beat up your truck and not break stuff. So this is, I've always wanted an Emaxx for a really long time, and so this is a culmination of a lot of research. I've been on so many forums, I've read so many threads, so many posts, I was just like sick of it by the time I was done. But I wanted to know every single part that people break on this truck, and if there's an upgrade and what you can do. So let's start off from the beginning here. I ended up buying this roller for $150 shipped, with 2 servos but no other electronics. You can usually find a roller, a 3903, 3905, 3908 roller. Those models are the upgraded versions of the Emaxx. So they're going to have the Revo spec diffs, the upgraded transmission, the longer chassis, the beefed up drive lines on there. So to be able to handle the power. So you want to start from one of those models. And from what I've seen on eBay and on rctech.net, Ultimate RC, you can usually find a fairly good roller for around $150 to $175 depending on the condition. So this is my $600 brushless Emaxx budget build. It's a little over $600 to build up what I have here, and to me is really like the epitome of what you can get out of this truck on a budget. Here's the total build list. It was $150 for the roller, came with 2 servos. The tack-on motor was $64. Hobby Wing waterproof ESC was $65. The Hobby Wing program card was $11, which you don't really need. I haven't even really played with it that much. I could have gone without it. The series connector to put 2 lipos in series was $7. Pinion was $5. We have a bottle of 50 weight shock fluid I used for all 8 shocks. That was $5. RPM bolts were $30. RPM rod ends were $8. RPM skid plates on the bottom were $20. RPM bulkhead braces were $8. RPM arms were $45. RPM towers were $30. RPM bumpers for the front and rear were $16. Lunsford titanium hinge pins were $22 for the full set. Aluminum chassis brace, 2 braces were $34. The aluminum skids were $15 for the front and rear. And the aluminum Traxxas rear toe links were $22. The Traxxas big bore shocks were $62 for all 8. And then the low-C blue springs were $12. Bringing it to a grand total of $630 shipped for everything for the complete project. So these were the electronics that I picked out for the truck. I kept the stock servos. I wanted everything still to be waterproof in case I did want to splash around in some water, or I ended up splashing in some water. So I got the Hobby Wing SC8. It's a waterproof, $65 shipped on Amazon.com. And I got a tack-on 4074. It's a 2150 kilovolt 8th scale motor, and very popular with a lot of people as well. So it's a really good combo. This was $63 shipped. So together it was about $130 shipped all in all for the ESC and the motor. It's been really superb. It has tons of power on 4S. So I'm really glad that I went with that combo there. So I wanted to hit all the basic areas and get everything replaced that needed to, that everybody has a lot of trouble with. So went ahead and replaced the arms with RPM. Front bumper, a lot of people end up breaking those. Bulkheads are notorious on this truck for breaking, so I replaced those with RPM bulkhead braces, which I'm not 100% sure that it really needed those, but I just wanted to have that complete all-around RPM setup around the diff. RPM shock towers, and RPM skid plates underneath. On the forums, there was a couple guys that I had found who were bending the stock rear toe links. So I ended up going with a Traxxas aluminum links in the back, and also a couple guys, including Jang from Ultimate RC, had ended up breaking on theirs the rod links. So those were cheap for $8, so I went ahead and replaced all those on the truck with blue RPM toe links, and just looks really nice, goes with the truck all around. In regards to the shocks, the problem that most people have with the shocks is the shock caps popping off and the shock shafts bending. And so when I was doing my research, most people were saying, okay, we'll replace all the shock shafts with titanium nitride shafts so they won't bend as easy, and then aluminum shock caps. Well, when I put all that stuff together and added it up, doing aluminum shock caps and the titanium nitride shafts was $65. And when I looked on A-Main Hobbies, you can get all 8 shocks with, they're called Traxxas big bores. They have the titanium nitride shafts, aluminum shock caps, and aluminum bodies for only $62. So it's actually cheaper to get the Traxxas big bores than it is to try to upgrade your stock shocks. And then if you do that, your stock shocks are still gonna have plastic bodies. So I went ahead and got those, and these red stock springs that come with the Emaxx are way too soft. They're, for this setup, they're just, the truck was like a lowrider, and I had preload clips all the way down to like the bottom of the shock body. So I actually credit this to Jang from Ultimate RC. He went with Losi blue springs on there, and so I got those. You know, I put in some preload spacers, and now it's a really awesome setup. For shock weight, a lot of people on the forums were going anywhere between 50 and 80. I went with 50, which is really great for when you're like hauling butt down a dirt road or something, and the truck really absorbs the bumps. But if you go with a 70 or 80, it's really going to stiffen up your suspension. So it's good for big jumps, because right now with the 50 weight, this just kind of bottoms out a little too easy on the big jumps. But if you go with a really thick weight oil, then you know, when you're going down a dirt road or just kind of hauling butt down some rough terrain, it gets so stiff it kind of bobbles the truck around and makes it uncomposed when it's driving down there. So it's a toss-up. You know, you can experiment with it and do whatever works best for your situation. So some of the final steps here that I ended up doing, you know, everybody's going to tell you that you want to get aluminum skid plates, and so they're really expensive, the ones I was looking at, and some of the ones people were describing for me to get. I ended up getting these aluminum skid plates from a company called RC Raven, I believe, and I found them on Amazon.com, and it was $15 for the front aluminum skid and the rear. And the only problem that people were saying with them is that they're fairly soft. So people were bending them. But what people didn't know is that you don't have to keep that big long front skid part on the front that sticks out and gets bent on the front and the back of the truck. And I'll show you here what I did with mine. But before we flip the truck back over, these are the RPM skid plates, and you know, they act more like wear plates, because I was under the impression that when I bought the RPM skid plates that they were going to replace the stock skid plates, and they don't. They cover the stock skid plates. So under more research, I found some pictures of guys on the forums who had stock plastic skid plates with the RPM skids you see here over them, and they were still breaking the stock skids. So, you know, these are going to help cover and protect the skids, but they're not going to keep them from fully breaking. So I went with the aluminum skids and then covered them with the RPM skid protectors, wear plates that will kind of protect them and just make it a little more durable like that. And then you can also see here the aluminum chassis braces that I bought, $35. And you know, lots of guys on the forum saying they were breaking their stock plastic ones going off big jumps, so I went ahead and got the aluminum ones. So you can see what I did here. Usually the aluminum and your plastic stock skid plate will come up to here, and then they'll kind of jet out up here like 3 or 4 inches. And what people end up doing is hitting stuff and hitting that plate, and then it gets all bent up into the truck here. So what I did was just took a grinder, cut that off. Same for the front as well. And then you just have your protection down there. The RPM, I wouldn't advise doing that unless you had the RPM skids, in my opinion. So you have that lip going up here to protect the truck a bit right there. And then the same for the front over here. Flip this around. Did the same for the front, just cut that off. You have the RPM skid coming up here, and then the bumper coming down here, so just all really good protection right here. You don't need that huge skid plate jettisoning up here and then getting bent when you hit stuff. So in my opinion, the $15 cheap RC Raven aluminum skids are completely fine if you just cut that off and then run the RPM skids up here. And then lastly, the hinge pins. I don't know if I mentioned that or not, but I ended up buying those. It was $22 for all the hinge pins you need. I got the Lunsford titanium ones instead of the stock ones because the stock one broke on me. So last things I want to mention here, body's been holding up fairly well. You know, it's taken quite a beating over the last couple months, but anytime I've had a crack develop or weak spots in the body, I've just used the shoe goo and drywall tape method, and it's worked great. I even lined the inside of it with truck bed liner that you can buy in a can. It's a spray for $9. Things that I've been keeping on hand that some people have told me that have broken on the truck but aren't really upgradable, so you just keep spares on hands. One is the knuckles. They're 5334R Traxxas part number. So I've heard maybe 1 or 2 people say that they cracked a knuckle before, but I think that these ones, just keeping these on hands will be fine. And then next up is the body or the bumper mounts. The bumper mounts, there's not an RPM upgrade, so just in case those ever break, I think like 1 person on all the forums searching I did said that they had broken one before, but it's really uncommon to break those. Since I have the stock Traxxas servos, I've heard of people saying that they've stripped a servo gear before, so I just have an extra set of servo gears in case that does happen. And then 1 or 2 people, it was super rare, said that they ended up breaking a pillow ball like on a huge jump and landing wrong, so I keep some pillow balls on hand. There's also been some people who stress getting the 17mm hubs instead of the 14mm hexes. And the stock 14mm hexes have been fine, they're metal. And just in case, for the off chance that I may strip a wheel, I just have an extra pair of wheels and tires that I bought on clearance from A-Main Hobbies. But other than that, if you set the slipper clutch right and you leave a little slip in there, then on 4S, the drivetrain and the diffs and everything really are able to take it, and they do a really good job. Other than that, the truck's been awesome. You know, I really feel like I have a good, solid rig that I can take out, beat up. It's not going to break, and it's been awesome. I haven't had any problems with it, and so here's just some footage to leave you with for some of the driving.
Yeah, try it again though.